Welcome everybody to On Deck here on Coast to Coast Entertainment Network. I am Crispy Bacon here with Big Dog Greg. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Crispy. How you doing, bud?
Doing good. Baseball season's slowly wrapping up. I think only a couple weeks left before the playoffs, right?
Yeah, yeah, about 20 games.
That's not long. 20 games to get things right if you're like the Rangers and not doing too well now or trying to make that playoff push. So, how's your team doing?
As you know, I'm a Cards fan, and it's just been kind of a really rough year. We've had some decent talent in our lineup, but I think that the departure of Molina and getting a new manager, um, and just kind of our pitching issues has been a big downfall this season. So it's been a rough year. We're pretty close to the bottom. I mean, we're nowhere near sniffing a wild card spot. So it's just time to regroup and see what happens in the spring. See what we can pick up. But we got to have a lot of changes. We need to figure out a lot this off season. So.
Yeah, it's if you're a team that's already out of the playoffs, like Oakland or Washington, you're trying to figure out what your lineup's going to be for next year. Uh, if you're a potential playoff team, you're looking at um, what to do to make the playoffs. And right now, my team's the Rangers, and we went from doing well to doing horrible. Uh, I don't know if it's the bullpen or a lineup, but something's not adding up. Last night, lost to the A's, which are eliminated from playoff contention. That was a game you should have won. Hopefully, we can rebound and win that game and make a playoff run. What do you think the Ranger struggles are?
The Rangers made some really good picks at the trade deadline, picking up Scherzer, picking up uh, my boy Jordan Montgomery from the Cardinals. They ended up really getting a good shot in the arm in their rotation. I do think that they're having a little bit of issue, kind of in their middle relief, um, and they're just not really pounding the ball like they were about a month ago. They're kind of struggling. I think that some teams are just kind of hitting the wall, and it seems like the Rangers are kind of running out of gas. At least they have been for the last couple weeks.
You think they can rebound and pick things back up, or do you think it's kind of the beginning of the end?
I I think that they're only a game and a half out of the wild card, so I think that it's possible. There's definitely plenty of time for them to catch up. It's not like they're eight back or anything at this point. So I think that they have plenty of chances. They pretty much have the rest of the season, um, you know, until they get eliminated. So if they can keep winning, uh, win like 3 or 4 out of every five, I think that they have a shot. But it's going to be tough because Seattle's playing really tough. And then the Astros are coming on strong again late in the season. So it's going to be
Mhm.
really tough for them to overtake the division. But I think for a wild card spot, they're right there. It's going to be a pretty good race.
Yeah, right now Rangers are 3.5 or 3 games up on or behind Houston. Houston's got the big lead. Seattle's not far behind. They're kind of in second place, and uh, it's going to be a fun race. Wild card or your playoff picture as it looks right now. Baltimore, Houston, and Minnesota are your division leaders in the AL, and your wild card teams are Tampa, Seattle, and Toronto. Surprised about Toronto, but what's your thoughts on that?
Um, I think that we got a really good race coming up. I think that Toronto, for the most part, has underachieved all season long, but they're actually playing really good baseball at this point. The fact that they're still in the mix for a wild card spot kind of amazes me because they were really slumping halfway through the season. So Toronto definitely has plenty of bats in that lineup. It's just that sometimes their pitching is inconsistent. Barrios, very inconsistent up and down all the time. Gossman, he's not really delivering a lot of strikeouts like he was a couple years ago with the Giants. Their middle relief struggles at times. They just dropped a big game, I believe, to the Royals a few days ago. So, just things. You never know what's going to happen. This like you got teams like the A's and the Royals that want to be spoilers. They're actually playing decent ball at times. So that can make it interesting too. But I think that we have really good race. I think that Toronto, I would give them kind of the edge because their lineup is actually starting to square up on the ball and get some runs across. So I wouldn't count out the Blue Jays for a spot in the wild card.
I wouldn't either. And right now, kind of on the outside looking in, is the Rangers. You're right. They're about a game and a half, from the wild card spot, the last wild card spot held by Toronto. So it looks like Toronto has to lose most games or every game for the Rangers to, leapfrog them. In the National League, your division leaders are Atlanta, the Dodgers, and the Brewers, with your wild card teams Philadelphia, Chicago Cubs, and the Diamondbacks. Any surprises there?
Yeah, the Diamondbacks still surprises me a little bit because they were really starting to drop off. Now they're picking it up. They're on fire. It still amazes me that the Giants are still in the mix. I think the Giants are only 2.5 games out. So we got a pretty good race. The Reds are still in the thick of it. The Reds are starting to lose a lot of steam, though. Not having Nick Loloto up on the bump is really hurting them. So his injury and being out is really hurting them. Andrew Abbott, he's had a stellar rookie season, but he's starting to hit the wall. Some of their pitchers are just starting to get gassed. I was hoping that when just a few weeks ago when the Angels were dumping all these players that they just picked up, that the Reds or somebody would go get Giolito, to try to make a push. Because what the Reds really needed to make a push was more pitching, because their pitching staff is just completely on empty right now. And they went out and got a couple hitters instead. So it's just one of those things where teams are picking up bats instead of pitching. I don't understand it at this point, because pitching is basically what's going to win the World Series for the most part. So if you don't have quality pitching, you're probably not going to win the World Series. You just can't go in there and expect to, outscore everybody every single time if you don't have good pitching. So, but I think that the National League is going to be a really good race, because there's still 2 or 3 teams on the outside looking in of a wild card.
James is agreeing with you, saying exactly about the Reds' needs. That's probably definitely what they need. He's also asking about, do we trust the Orioles in the postseason with all of these timers playing in October? What's your
I think that we do trust the Orioles. I mean, Adley Rutschman, he won a championship with Oregon State. And I know that the World Series for Major League Baseball is a little bit different than the College World Series, but there's still a lot of pressure. And the Oregon State, they got a few lucky breaks, but they came through, and it was a hostile environment and everything. But Adley Rutschman, he's no stranger to playing, under pressure. I think that picking up Flaherty was a big bonus. Flaherty is starting to get some good break on his curveball again. And I think that the Orioles, even though they have first timers, I don't think it's going to show much in the postseason. I think that these guys, Sanamander, Rutschman, Cedric Mullins, some of these guys, they're just going to put the put the bat on the ball. They're going to get some stolen bases. They're going to hit for doubles, and they're going to put up some good runs. Grayson Rodriguez is pitching well on the mound. Flaherty's not pitching too bad. So I think that the Orioles have a pretty well-rounded team. I don't think that their youth is going to affect them too much in the postseason.
James is rooting for the Orioles. I think, like most fans are, they're kind of the sleeper team. They haven't been to the postseason in a while. Really done much in the postseason for quite some time. So I think everybody's just kind of putting them as the Cinderella team, possibly. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't know if I call them a Cinderella team, because for the last 2 seasons, I've seen them do nothing but improve. They're improving their lineup. They're when they brought up Rushman, he's been pounding the ball. They kind of remind me of what the Astros were doing a few years ago when they didn't have anything. They traded off their biggest stars, and then they had to regroup. And they're getting some young talent in there, and they're playing really good ball. They get on. They have some guys with some speed that fill some bases. They hit for doubles. They have a few guys that can hit with a lot of pop with Rushman and Salamander. And of course, Gunnar Henderson is an outstanding rookie. So I wouldn't call them underdogs by any means, but I think that they're underdogs just for the fact that they haven't been in the postseason for 10 years or so.
Right. As for today's lineup of games, probably a lot of games to watch as we get closer to the playoffs. Brewers and the Yankees. Yankees are, I won't say they're out of it, but they're far behind. Probably a needed win for them. Mets and Twins. Twins looking good. Mets already out of the playoffs. Cubs and Diamondbacks. Cubs are at home. Both potentially playoff teams at this moment, so both teams need to win there. You got Seattle and Tampa Bay, LA and the Dodgers and Nationals, Orioles and Blue Jays. The Orioles, who we just talked about, battling the Red Sox, who I think are out of the playoffs entirely, at least the playoff picture. You also got Marlins and Phillies, White Sox and Tigers, Padres and Astros, the A's and Rangers, Cardinals and Reds, Pirates and Braves, the Rockies and the Giants. I think both those teams are kind of on the outside. The Guardians and the Angels. I think that's it. Any games stick out to you?
The biggest game probably, because they're right there back to back for the wild card, would be the Cubbies and the D-backs. They had an absolute gem of a game. It felt like a playoff game yesterday. We had a 1-0 outstanding pitching performance from both Zach Gallen of the D-backs and Jameson Taillon of the Cubs. Not a lot of hits, not a lot of action going on, but from a pitching standpoint, it was outstanding. It had that feel that neither team wanted to make a mistake. So I think that's going to be a big one to watch. I think that a few of these games with the sleeper teams, when you're talking about the A's and the Royals are playing actually pretty decent baseball right now. And it wouldn't surprise me if they're able to get a few upsets, maybe keep a couple teams from reaching the wild card, because it seems like every few nights you're getting outstanding pitching performances or kind of a rare hitting night especially for the Royals. They've been putting up a lot of runs, and then the A's. You've got J.P. Sears and Paul Blackburn that have been pitching lights out, and then you got Waldichuk. So there's no real easy games, even though their records might show that it might look like an easy win. There really aren't a whole lot of easy wins out on the board at this point in the season.
No, there's not, and I think that's what helped. I think it was Tampa Bay. We were so surprised at the beginning of the season that they won 12, 13 games in a row to start the season, and I think with that running, that streak of wins, I think it helped them in the long run.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't think they'd be really in the mix for much if they would have started out, 5-8 or 7-7 or something like that. Definitely getting off to a red hot start definitely helped them. And the Rays are actually playing pretty good baseball considering all the drama and all the news and all the negative publicity coming out. They're actually playing some really good ball.
That's true. They have. James is saying Rays had a wild season. They have very wild. Isaiah's also asking what are our thoughts on the Rangers' collapse? Not good. I mean, you had a good season.
I don't know if I'd necessarily call it a collapse because they're still within reach of a wild card. I mean, they're a game and a half out. They've got the pitching to get them through. They've got Haney, they got Scherzer, they have Jordan Montgomery, they have Dunning, and they have decent pitchers out there. I think that the bats just need to wake up a little bit. I think they'll be okay if they can just get their offense going again. But there's times out there where I'm thinking, oh, Bochy's losing his mind with some of the decisions he's making out there, pulling people and putting people in and everything. But, I think that happens every season, though. You can always second guess the manager or second guess the lineup. But, yeah, the Rangers just I think the Rangers are slumping, but, I mean, the time is now. I mean, they have to do something, or else they're just going to slip out of it.
They do, and I mean, Bochy's been really good. I feel like the bullpen's what's holding us back a little bit, and maybe a little bit of the starting rotation. But I mean, he's good overall. He's a good manager, and I think it's just a fluke right now. James is saying Chapman has been awful lately.
Here's what I would do with Chapman, okay? I would probably pitch Chapman in only non-pressure situations. When there's a save on the line, he has been abysmal this season. I think that I would give Will Smith, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, another chance at the closing role. I've seen him come in as the setup guy for Chapman, and he's been pitching lights out. So I would probably give Will Smith a chance and have Aroldis Chapman be the setup man or something. I think that Chapman's consistency in non-pressure situations is a lot better. His first pitch strikes is phenomenal in non-pitch situations. It just seems like when he gets out there and there's a save on the line, he's hitting people, he's getting into 3-2 counts, he's giving up hard contact. He's balking, he's not he's getting time violations. He just doesn't seem to be able to put it together when there's the game on the line.
That's true. He hasn't. James is also saying Max has been a fraud in Texas or for Texas. Talking about the pitching coach, I think it was.
He's talking about Max Scherzer.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he hasn't been what he's advertised to be, I guess.
Well, let's say this: he wasn't really doing a whole lot for the Mets, and the Rangers still won. So I don't think he's a fraud. They knew exactly how he was pitching. Maybe they were thinking that warmer weather would help him out or something. But I don't know if he's been a fraud. You're getting a 40-year-old pitcher, and there's only so many arms. There's only so many throws left in the arm. So I mean, to pay big money for a guy on his way out soon, I don't think that's a fraud. I think that he's probably overpaid, but they were willing to pay it.
Well, and then what? It's been so long, but you signed another pitcher to a massive deal in the off season, and then he got injured. I can't think of his name.
Who was that?
He was another Met.
You talking Verlander?
Maybe. I don't know, but you signed two good pitchers, and they're both out with injuries.
Oh.
But as we close out for the last few minutes, any final thoughts before we head out?
Well, it's going to be an exciting last few weeks of the baseball season. I think that I don't know who I would make for a World Series prediction. I don't want to go necessarily with just the front runners because I think that there's teams in the National League like the Phillies that can make another push. I think the Phillies is definitely kind of another sleeper team. And then, of course, the hunt for the wild card with the Giants kind of on the outside looking in. You got the Reds on the outside looking in, and the D-backs barely hanging on by a thread for that final spot. I think it's going to be really interesting. I think that the Reds, if they can get a little bit more pop in their lineup, has a really good chance at making the wild card. But I'm not really counting on their pitching at this point. I think that they're going to have to get a lot of people on and score a lot of runs because I think that their arms are kind of running out of juice. But I'm just excited for the postseason. It's going to be a really awesome run. I think that here pretty soon there will be more teams eliminated from contention for a wild card, and we'll get a little bit more clear picture of what's going on. But it's going to be exciting, and my team's out of it, but I think I'm going to root for the Orioles and the Reds. I don't think the Reds are going to make the World Series. I don't even know if they'll make the wild card, but yeah, I'm definitely all in on the Orioles if I had to pick a team.
And Adam is asking, who's your MVP? Is it Acuna?
For the National League?
Yes.
I would probably go with Acuna just because he's got good power numbers. He's got a lot of runs scored, a lot of stolen bases. He's really a huge contributor for a big percentage of their offense. So I would definitely probably give him the MVP in the National League.
And quickly, what about American League?
Okay, you'll have to tell me who the front runners are.
Not sure. Probably Ohtani. I would think Ohtani.
Yeah, I think that Ohtani getting hurt from a pitching standpoint hurts a little bit, but I mean he still has 40-something home runs. I definitely would put him in the mix. I think that it's going to be Ohtani and Acuna for MVP. I still think that Ohtani had decent pitching numbers this year. It's sad that his body's wearing down again. This is the second time in 3 years that he's had to shut it down with his arm. So that might be something to think about in the off season, whether to have him be like a permanent batter or to continue to throw him out there. But I think that it's definitely taken its toll.
James is saying that AL MVP is Kyle Tucker, and on Acuna, he's batting .334 with 36 home runs, 63 stolen bases, and 90 RBIs.
Yeah, Kyle Tucker is definitely having an outstanding season. I don't know if it's even a coin toss at this point though. Ohtani has been so electric all season long. Tucker's been kind of putting up outstanding numbers, but kind of under the radar. Like, have you ever seen a player that has outstanding stats, but you don't even know? It doesn't stand out.
That's true. I mean,
I've seen plenty of guys in the NBA that had awesome stats, but then their name never comes up in conversation for anything. So,
right. We got to run. There's something going on. So make sure to stay tuned for another episode of On Deck here on Coast to Coast. Make sure to check out Morning Tailgate tomorrow morning, where we preview week number 1 of the NFL season. So with that, I am Crispy Bacon here with Big Dog Greg, and we'll see you guys next week.
Colts.
Huh?
Go Colts.
Go Colts.